famous YouTuber, Sophia, known for her bold and fearless online persona, steps into the crowd with her camera crew. With a mischievous grin, she looks at the royal guard standing motionless in his uniform. Without hesitation, she struts toward him, her confidence radiating as she raises her hand. She slaps his hat off. Loudly, she taunts, "Let's see if you can stay silent after this." The crowd gasps. Phones flash. Some tourists laugh nervously while others eagerly film the spectacle unfolding before them. But the royal guard, Corporal James Ashford, doesn't react. His posture remains perfect. His face is stone still, his eyes fixed ahead, unwavering. The crowd grows tense. What will he do? Will he break? Will he say something? Before we reveal what happens next, hit that subscribe button and tell us where you're watching from. Now, let's dive into this moment. Sophia, 31, had built an empire on pushing the limits. Known for her bold online persona, she thrived on creating viral content, stunts that made people laugh, gasp, and share. Her daring antics were her trademark. The bigger the challenge, the more attention she received. Every stunt was designed to spark a reaction, to shock her audience, and keep them coming back for more. Behind the camera, however, there was a deeper drive. Sophia didn't just seek attention for the sake of it. She enjoyed the rush of testing boundaries, seeing how far she could push others, how much she could get away with. But lately, her pranks had escalated, growing bolder and riskier. She was always looking for the next big thing to keep her followers engaged. That morning, while filming outside Buckingham Palace for her latest vlog, she spotted something that would set the stage for her biggest stunt yet. A royal guard, standing perfectly still, his posture flawless and unwavering, was the picture of discipline. An idea sparked in Sophia's mind. This would be the moment to push his limits, to provoke him into breaking character. A viral video was just one taunt away. She couldn't resist the opportunity. With a mischievous smile, she walked toward him, her steps deliberate, her camera crew following closely behind. This was her next big move, the one that would get everyone talking. Sophia approaches the royal guard with a playful, almost teasing grin on her face. Her camera crew follows closely behind, capturing every step, every moment of this bold stunt. As she gets within a few feet of the immovable figure, the crowd around them senses something is about to happen. Sophia's eyes twinkle with mischief, her confidence glowing as she raises her hand. In one swift, deliberate motion, she slaps the guard's hat off his head, the sound of it echoing through the plaza. "Come on, let's see what you've got," she shouts loudly, the words ringing in the air. The crowd gasps collectively. Some laugh, thinking it's all in good fun. Phones rise, eager to capture the next viral moment. Others, however, glance around nervously, sensing they are witnessing something rare. This wasn't the usual exchange with a royal guard. This was something different, something that broke the unwritten rules of decorum and respect that the guard stood for. But Corporal Daniel Ford, 30, doesn't flinch. He doesn't move. His posture remains flawless, immovable, just as it had been before the slap. His expression remains stoic, a mask of calm and discipline. The slap, the challenge, it doesn't break him. His eyes stay locked ahead, unwavering, and his entire body exudes an almost palpable sense of control. The crowd, once full of laughter and excitement, grows suddenly quiet. The air becomes thick with anticipation. What would happen next? Would the guard break his silence? Was there a point at which even his discipline could be tested? The tourists hold their breath, all eyes fixed on the royal guard, unsure of what to expect. Was there a limit to his control, a point where he would react? Or was this a man who truly could endure anything, no matter how much the world tried to push him? And then, the unexpected happens. With a subtle, almost imperceptible shift, Daniel Ford moves. The silence that followed Sophia's challenge seemed to stretch on forever, like an unspoken tension hanging in the air. For a moment, the crowd held their collective breath, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Sophia, her confidence now faltering, stood still, watching the royal guard, expecting some kind of reaction, a break in his calm demeanor. But Corporal Daniel Ford didn't flinch. His eyes, still fixed ahead, did nothing more than flicker briefly toward Sophia. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was enough. Then, in one smooth motion, he took a single, controlled step forward. The movement was slow, deliberate, and powerful. The crowd leaned in, their phones lowered for a moment as they sensed something far more profound was about to unfold. With a voice calm and unwavering, Daniel spoke softly, but with piercing clarity. "I don't break for attention." The words hit the air like a wave, rippling through the crowd. The mockery had been replaced by a quiet, controlled force that was impossible to ignore. He wasn't angry. He wasn't upset. He was simply steady. And with that, he straightened his uniform, the movement smooth and practiced, the years of discipline evident in every motion. His hands, steady and sure, reached down and picked up his hat from the stone ground. Without any further words, he placed the hat back onto his head, adjusting it precisely, as if nothing had happened. Every movement he made was a testament to his years of training, his unwavering commitment to his role. He turned without another glance and returned to his post. His eyes locked ahead once more, his posture as flawless and unyielding as before. Sophia stood frozen, the words she had expected to hear completely absent. Instead of an outburst, an argument, or a flurry of emotion, she was met with complete calm, an almost eerie level of control that she hadn't anticipated. Her smug grin faded as she processed the moment. The crowd, who had expected retaliation or perhaps some form of anger, now stood in stunned silence. No one dared speak. The phones that had been lifted earlier to capture a moment of mockery were now used to capture something entirely different. The laughter that had filled the air moments before had been replaced with hushed admiration. Sophia, caught off guard, couldn't help but feel the weight of the lesson unfolding before her. The world had expected a spectacle, a moment of conflict. But instead, they had witnessed something much more powerful. The dignity, the strength, and the grace of silence. A lesson in control and resilience, taught by a man who stood unwavering in the face of mockery, his presence louder than any words could ever be. The crowd, now fully aware of the lesson they had just witnessed, watched as Corporal Daniel Ford stood tall, still as stone, embodying the very definition of strength in silence. The laughter that had filled the air moments before had completely dissipated. The mocking, the taunts, everything had fallen away, replaced by an undeniable shift in the atmosphere. The tourists, once caught up in the spectacle, now stood still, their expressions changing. A few murmured soft apologies under their breath, as if realizing the weight of what had just transpired. The realization hit them. This wasn't a game. This wasn't something to mock. This was something far deeper. As the Royal Guard, Corporal Daniel Ford returned to his post without a single word, the crowd grew quieter. His unwavering posture was no longer a symbol of just duty. It had transformed into a symbol of profound strength and dignity. The stillness that had been ridiculed just moments ago now radiated with respect. The people who had once mocked him now looked at him differently, some even lowering their heads slightly, in silent acknowledgement of the power of his response. Sophia, standing at the heart of it all, felt the shift in the air. Her earlier bravado, the cocky smile, the belief that she could control the situation, began to fade. Instead, she stood in a quiet awe, her body still as she processed what had just unfolded. She had expected a reaction, perhaps anger, perhaps even confrontation, but what she had witnessed was something entirely different. Grace. In the face of mockery, in the face of provocation, Daniel had stood his ground with absolute calm. He had taught her, and everyone else present, that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Back in her world, where she was used to driving the narrative with boldness and humor, she felt something she had rarely felt before. A sense of respect for someone else's discipline, someone else's strength. It was a humbling experience, and she couldn't deny the feeling of admiration that crept over her. This wasn't just about her prank anymore. It was about something much deeper. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Sophia's phone buzzed non-stop. Her followers were flooding her messages with reactions. Some were congratulating her for the daring stunt, but many more were commenting on the Royal Guard's response. They had never seen anything like it. Instead of the angry outburst they had expected, they had witnessed a quiet, powerful moment of discipline and composure. The viral video she had envisioned for comedic effect had taken on a completely different tone. Now, it was filled with respect, a tribute to the guard's unwavering strength in the face of ridicule. Sophia's eyes lingered on her phone, reading the messages. A few of her followers had shared the clip on their own feeds, commenting on the guard's incredible restraint and quiet power. Sophia felt a sense of pride, but not for herself. This time, she wasn't the star. The man in the uniform was. As the realization settled in, Sophia lowered her phone, her face softening. The cocky amusement that had once been there was replaced with something else: respect. She had expected the Royal Guard to break. She had expected to win the moment. Instead, she had been reminded of something far more profound. The lesson in discipline, strength, and grace that Corporal Daniel Ford had taught her without saying a word was far greater than anything she had hoped to achieve. As a child, Daniel Ford was no stranger to discipline. Raised in a strict household, every action, every word was carefully considered. His father, a retired military officer, made sure of it. From a young age, Daniel was taught that true strength didn't come from brute force or loud declarations. It came from restraint, from the ability to control one's emotions and actions, even when the world around you seemed to demand otherwise. His father's lessons were simple but profound. True strength is in holding back, in knowing when to act, and when silence speaks louder than words. These teachings weren't just about obedience. They were about survival. Daniel's father had spent his life in the military, enduring the pressures of combat and leadership, where every decision could mean life or death. He passed on those lessons to his son, hoping Daniel would learn to weather the storms of life with the same unwavering calm that had kept him safe in the most dangerous of circumstances. As Daniel grew older, he joined the military, following in his father's footsteps. His commitment to discipline was tested in ways he never could have imagined. Combat and the constant threat of danger brought out the best in him, but also the hardest moments of his life. There were missions that went wrong, moments when every instinct told him to act. Yet he had to keep calm. Lives were lost, but his training, the discipline his father had instilled in him, helped him survive those moments. There were times when the chaos around him seemed unbearable, when the pain of losing a comrade threatened to overwhelm him. Yet, Daniel learned that it wasn't just about the physical endurance to survive. It was about mental strength, the ability to shut out the noise, to stand still and make decisions from a place of clarity, not panic, had often made the difference between life and death. His calmness had been a shield in the most intense moments, allowing him to keep others safe, to take control when everything else seemed out of reach. Now, standing outside Buckingham Palace in full uniform, Daniel's calm wasn't just about protocol. It wasn't about following orders without thought. It was a reflection of everything he had experienced, every lesson his father had taught him. The stillness that people saw as just a ceremonial posture was, for him, a form of mental discipline, a deep-seated belief that true strength lay in his ability to control his reactions, to face chaos without succumbing to it. In that moment, as tourists mocked and tested him, he remembered his father's words. The world might demand a response, but true strength lay in knowing when to remain unshaken, when to let the noise of the world pass by without reacting. It wasn't about keeping his job as a royal guard. It was about holding on to what he had learned long before he stood at the gates of Buckingham Palace. It was about being the calm in the storm. The Buckingham Palace gates remain unmoved, standing tall as they always have. The tourists continue to gather, capturing photos, marveling at the iconic palace. But today, something has changed. It's not just the tradition or the ceremony that draws attention. It's the quiet strength of the royal guard that resonates with the crowd. What had once been seen as a mere symbol of duty and stoicism now represented something far deeper: discipline, grace, and the profound power of silence. Sophia's experience and the crowd's sudden shift from mockery to respect encapsulate the true nature of what it means to stand still in a chaotic world. Corporal Daniel Ford, with his unwavering silence, had taught a lesson far greater than any words could express. Have you ever broken the silence for the right reason? Would you have reacted like Daniel, or stayed composed, knowing the power of stillness? The silence that filled the air that day spoke louder than any angry response or mocking words could have. In a world that often values noise and spectacle, it was the calm, the composed, and the dignified response that truly made an impact. Let us know in the comments what you think. Would you have stayed calm in Daniel's place? Do you believe silence can hold more power than words? Share this story with someone who believes that true strength isn't in shouting or fighting back. It's in the quiet moments that speak louder than any response could. And don't forget to join us tomorrow for another Royal Guard story that proves silence can be the loudest and most impactful response of all.